Well, g'day friends, welcome back to New Dollarton. In the last episode, we really focused on the finer details of things, just getting into the nitty-gritty detail work, and it was a lot of fun, but I don't think we really made a huge amount of progress in terms of getting big chunks of the city developed. In fact, it's only like a tiny little portion. So today, I would like to take it up a notch and just get a big chunk of the city developed up, and I've got just the place. This place, in particular, has been driving me nuts for ages. And the reason why is because I've never really fully known what to do with it. I also mentioned in the last episode that New Dimesburg is all about new and old industry. We've got the little hidden gems of old industry and the remnants left behind, like this old industrial rail line that stretches throughout the entire city. That's just a nice little detailed portion. But the reason why I love industry so much is that it makes such a cool contrast when you have neighborhoods and you've also got this more modern downtown look. But then I love the idea that there is just smoky big chunks of industry all over the place. And I would like New Dimesburg to really represent that. At the moment though, I can't say it really does. We do have a big part of industry over here, but I'm actually going to completely redevelop this up because it's just been zoned and kind of forgotten about. So this is what I have in mind for this part of the city, and I've flip-flopped constantly, and I'm just going to talk it through with you guys right now because I kind of need to talk it through. So this is my thought. In Jersey City, on this side of the river or whatever this little thing is, there is Liberty State Park, which we could do something very similar with. I think it'd actually be a really easy conversion of this whole area, turn it into a really nice big parkland, and that would be a good nod to, you know, Jersey City and what's going on in our source of inspiration. But then I also kind of want to do something a little bit different, because like I mentioned, I do want there to be a good chunk of industry fairly close to the downtown. I want it to be all over the place. And like I said, there is no industry all over the place, only old parts of it. So what I'm also thinking of potentially doing is Liberty State Park was actually just a massive freight yard with just a whole bunch of rail networks all over the place. This thing was pretty chock-a-block full of trains, and I think that would also be kind of fun to have in my version, New Dimesburg. You know how cool it would be if there was just a big rail yard that just sat around here. And you can already see a bit of an attempt that I made a few months ago to do something similar, just as a bit of an idea of what could sit here. But that's also to be potentially converted into a park or a rail yard. I don't know yet. I honestly am still figuring this out, and I'll probably figure it out within this episode. I also think that we do really need some parkland because we don't really have a huge amount, and we don't even have any sort of central park. That's like the biggest one we've got at the moment. And I also feel like we could really use more of this. Some more areas that have been redeveloped into more modern apartment blocks and just turned into something that I think probably reflects what the city is more about these days. So that's kind of my thinking. Actually, you know what? While I've just been talking to you guys, looking at the city, I've just made a decision. Okay, just hear me out for 1 second. A truly spontaneous decision right there. I don't even know if that was the right move, but this right here, I think this is where my park's gonna go. Like a sort of Central Park-esque type of area. I'm thinking more Lincoln Park. I might go for something like this, and we'll probably slap on some sort of little golf course as well that might fit in an area over here. So, or maybe in this area, because I do need to redevelop that. So I don't know why I just did all that. This is a story for another day, but I kind of like the idea that it sits over here, you know? You can see a nice little green space that sits there. But I do know what I'm gonna do down here. So this definitely needs to be redeveloped. It's all looking pretty old. We still have industry that sits here. And if you're wondering why I am also having to demolish these Grobbles, even though I have zoned out these places and They're not complaining about a lack of zoning. It's because I'm using the Plop the Growlables mod, and I'm going to continue using this mod for a very particular reason. So I can plop the Growlables. And sticking with the theme of contrast, I really like the fact that we've got some small row houses down here, kind of reflecting the older neighborhoods that would have sat around New Dimesburg, now replaced by all these bigger, larger buildings. And I think, though, that getting closer to the waterfront, a more desirable area and an area that is of probably priority when it comes to larger apartment blocks, I think we go for that. And we do have all this old industrial rail line that sits around here still. I'm going to keep it here just as a bit of a placeholder. I'm sure you can fill in the gaps and figure out what my ultimate plan is with all of that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a lot of these signature buildings. And I'm going to use this as a bit of a base as the bottom part of the building. And then I'm going to find something a little bit taller, maybe another signature building that we can place over the top. Oh, look at that. He's got little legs. It kind of reminds me of the robot from Interstellar. You know, the guy with that rectangle guy with those legs that kind of just do this. You know what I'm talking about. And there's really some excellent growable buildings that you can place down using Plop the Growlables, and in isolation and just being placed down into the right spot, I feel like truly work in areas like this. So I'm going to go through and try and find the ones that fit the best. I think that kind of works. But it might be the tallest. I'll try and go for something a little bit shorter from now on. And I think that's turned out pretty well. A few little things I want to change, but for the most part, this is the general idea. And of course, this is just buildings. We do need to add some minor details, but I really like the fact that just these buildings are spliced together and aren't having any problems at all, which is just so wonderful. Very much City Skylines 1 days, so all on board with that. This is obviously like a brand new development, and it's kind of all in the same style as the types of buildings that you'd find in New Dimesburg anyway. All that brown brick, that red brick. But I guess maybe just adding a little bit of extra modern architecture flares, and we'll probably add some bits and pieces that kind of create this area as a bit more of a luxury place to live, even though you're going to be right opposite a bunch of industry or maybe even a rail yard. I guess that's the contrast that I wanted. And there's a couple of things I want to change. So, I do love these buildings here, but I did find a building that I think will work a little bit better and might just be kind of interesting. This auto center, I'm purely going to place this down because it kind of fits in really well with the arch of that train line. See what I mean? Ooh, that's pretty nice. I do like that. I didn't like the fact that I had to remove that road because I felt like I needed that road there. However, I've got another idea. We do have a bit of space to arch that road through here, and there's actually a little bit of a gap where we can connect up. So let's see if that's going to work. Yeah, that fits in beautifully. Really happy with that. I'm not so happy though with the fact that this no longer fits. And I don't even know whereabouts I'm going to be placing it, because I feel like if it doesn't go there, then where else does it go? And I could really use 200 residents right now. Because if you don't know, a whole bunch of the places in New Dimesburg are actually vacant. These are all vacant buildings that nobody's working at because we just don't have enough people. As you can see, our demand is ultra high and we have a pretty big homeless problem because I'm just not providing enough homes for people. And a big apartment like that is perfect because that's exactly what we need. And unfortunately, I don't think that these work here either. So I'm gonna have to reshuffle all of this and rethink about how I'm going to be kind of creating this area. And I even think that I might even go with these buildings that we placed down over here because this is the sort of area that would have most probably been developed at the same time and by the same developer, and with sort of the same theme in mind. They do like to do that. So I think we're just going to continue that same type of architecture, and hopefully I won't regret that because I did kind of like these buildings. Geez, like I got millions of dollars. Whoa, I'm making money. Did not expect that to happen. A little bit rough around the edges, but I'm a bit of a fan. You know, when you zoom out and look at these areas and see how different they are to the rest of the skyline and the rest of the areas that you have built, I think that it works super well. So I'm gonna keep these, and we'll probably end up doing the same thing in other parts of the city. So that's just a little technique I'm gonna keep as just a tool that I'll use a little later. I also placed down these guys over here. I don't know if they work, but we'll just leave them there for a little minute. And it's time to get into this part. I want this to be a park, and I also want to add a bit of detail all the way up until here. I do need to figure out what to do with this little space. I could drag out this road, but I do also think that we probably need a bit of parking around here. And we do have these new parking lots, which we could use. Actually, does this fit? Or almost. What about if I pair him with this little guy? Ah, you little ripper. Okay, ultra super simple bits of detail down here because I only really plan to look at this area from a fairly far away distance, and I think that the detail work that I've done down here, one of the main ones was just to create different colors down here. I don't want to just have all the same concrete because I think that's a bit of a trap you can fall into with this game, is just have all the same colors. That's why I tried to choose a lot of red bricks. And we've also got a lot of red brick surface, which I think also just adds just to the variation. But the park is bare bones. I wanted it to be kind of open with trees. Yeah, we've got a fair few around, but I don't want to do a huge amount. So around this area, it's pretty simple. But I wouldn't mind this area to look a bit more rough around the edges, at least where some of the trees are. So I might just add a couple of decals just underneath some of these. Yeah, just a little bit of dirt underneath these trees, I think is all we really need. I would really love to just add some slight variation to just some of the grass because it is, you know, just a little bit too clean for my liking, but I don't think we have anything that is light enough to be able to place down so it's not so obvious that there is just like a giant decal over the top. Yeah, I can't figure it out, so I'll just leave it because I think it looks alright. And look, in terms of my decision to turn this into either a rail yard or a big lovely park, I have decided I'm going to turn it into, it's going to be a big fat rail yard. Yeah, I mean, you probably saw it coming, but I do want this whole area to be just super industrial. And I think that we'll have a slight transition to industry in this little section, you know, just some more open spaces and some containers and some concrete and probably just a whole bunch of parking lots, pretty similar to what's happening in Jersey City. And then for the rest of it, I think it's gonna be really fun to have just lots of freight coming in and out and just that polarizing contrast of industry and being so close to the downtown. It's gonna be so different to all the other places we're gonna be building in New Dollarton. So that's what we're gonna be doing. I would also like to make my highway a little bit more striking and really raise it up so it's high above all that industry that's gonna sit down here, and we'll just have a whole bunch of smoky stacks kind of just smoking their way in between all this. So that's what we're gonna be doing. I think it's gonna be kind of fun. So if we're gonna do that in that area, we do need to make a couple more parks, which I'm sure you probably saw coming because I'm sure it's got something to do with the title and the thumbnail. So we'll have to work on some sort of park over this way. But first, I gotta fill this area because if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. In Jersey City, it's a bit of a mix of all this old industry and these open spaces, and I guess like a little bit of, I don't know, swampiness. There's a bit of swampiness going on down here. There's some parking lots and some concrete, and there's also this marina too. And in terms of boats and piers and marinas or anything to do with water, we've got a real lack of any of those sort of assets. So I might not even do anything in terms of that. But in terms of open spaces, I do have a pretty good idea. And already I'm a big fan because we now have more open space, which I think is really needed. And we're kind of seeing the development patterns where we've got, you know, this brand new development, which isn't really that old. And then you've got these other areas that are definitely under construction, or at least will be at some stage. This is like almost prime location, but obviously still too close to industry and probably still not massively desirable. Before we get to the trees, I'm going to convert this road down here into a highway. I don't really want to see people walking along it. I feel like this just needs to be purely for vehicles getting to the industrial area, and I don't even think that many people would even want to use this when we've got this highway up here, but I guess they are for now. And now for the trees, I'm going to go for, I think what I'll do is I'll start large, and then we'll fill some of the empty spaces with some smaller trees, but I would like to try and create some sort of marshland. And I've never really done that in City Skylines 2 before, so this could be, I don't know, this could be good, or this could be just an absolute miss. Alright, I'm gonna need you guys to hold me accountable because once again I'm detailing, I'm getting carried away. I'm not meant to be. I'm meant to be getting lots done, but this is not lots. This is getting into the nitty-gritty stuff again. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, this is looking pretty good, especially now that we've got some green leaves. I was having some hesitation before with the colors, but I think that now that we're out of autumn and spring and winter, I think that this is looking much better for a swampy little marshy industrial area. But I'm a big fan. I like areas like this. I really like building areas like this. And there's still like a couple of things I can add just to add a little bit of extra realism. I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago, but do not snooze on electricity poles, utility poles, power lines. This is one way to add heaps of realism to your cities. And then just a couple of billboards just scattered around, but not going overboard. There's already enough billboards within the city, but I reckon advertising some of the industry that will be over on this side is something that we could potentially add. I will like to come back here and raise up our elevated highway even more because I want this thing to be very imposing, very large, and just something that you look at and go, oh, that's a big boy. At the moment, it's kind of just average height. I think we can go a bit higher, but I think that's a job for another day. And like I mentioned before, some sort of freight yard, I think would be really, really cool. A great polarizing and nice little contrast to this city that is so modern and so built up and looking kind of nice. Whereas I think the rest of all this area is going to be not so nice. But what do you think about all this? I feel like it's come together really nicely, but I can't say that we're getting heaps done at the moment. Well, I mean, it's a bit done. That's a good chunk, but I think we can do a little bit better. Oh yeah, this is starting to turn out pretty damn nice. This is all based on Lincoln Park, which is in a pretty similar area to Jersey City and in New Dimesburg. And I think this is adding so much to the general vibe of the city. Definitely from like when you zoom out and you look at the rest of it, you can really tell that we needed some green space here and just some green space in general within the city. Of course, we've got some areas that are just kind of vacant, but I did feel like we needed something else here. It actually has completely changed the vibe of this whole area, which is nice. So I feel like this is really becoming quite a wealthy neighborhood. I do want to have pockets of that for sure, particularly this area, which I will talk about in a second, but we do have a big chunk of industry, and I'd also imagine that there would have been industry all stretched throughout this. A couple of things I want to change before we continue working on the rest of the park is this section just here. We've got this like grassed area that I feel like we need to do something with it. This is my idea. I think I might remove these guys, remove those trees and that guy. And we'll place down a couple more houses. I'm going to look for some fairly large ones because that's the sort of area this is in. That actually works pretty well. And I'm actually going to drag out all of this grass section. And this guy now has a pretty nice big yard. What a lucky duck. And I think that we'll continue to sort of flesh out this area to be more of a wealthier, nice neighborhood, and all this space will have to kind of be redeveloped as well. But I do want this area to be a bit different on this side of things. So at the moment, this is all just zoned out and totally grown buildings, houses, and we've got some big chunky mansions, which I don't really think that it matches very well with the type of vibe that I'm going around here. So let's remove all this. There we go. And with a name like Irongate, this neighborhood was formed and kind of created and was based around iron ore industry. So, you know, that sort of existed around this area. And I think that this was probably all part of it. This place has been definitely more gentrified and is looking a little bit nicer. Whereas over here, I think we'll still have a little bit of industry, and I would like the houses to kind of reflect that. I think I might go for a bit of a mixed bag. We're gonna have some smaller places. We'll also have a couple of more modern and larger little spots. And just like that, it's complete. Yeah, so I just did all this off camera. You might be like, well, why not take me along for the ride? $2. I had full intention on doing this with you all, but as they say in the parenting world, I got nap trapped. My son decided just to have a little snooze, so I was unable to do any recording, and I just built and built and built, and here we are. So this is what we got. And I tell you what, this is getting me excited for future builds because this is exactly what I want to be building. Lots of industry like this all along the shorefront, and honestly, kind of easy. A lot of it is very bare bones and very, you know, when you kind of like break it apart and just like analyze it for like 2 seconds, you realize, okay, you've been a little bit sloppy in certain areas, $2. And that's fine because it's kind of also the point. I do want it to be a little, maybe not that sloppy, but you know what I mean. I don't want to be spending ages on every single little bit of detail. It's more about the bigger picture stuff. And in terms of the big picture stuff, I feel like there is a lot going on down here, and let's unpack a bit of it. So I've gone kind of heavy with the industrial side of things. I wanted all this shorefront to be very industrial, and I'm kind of going for this vibe that we also have down in here in Jersey City. I keep on calling this area Jersey City, but I'm sure it's probably known as somewhere completely different. But I mean, all this sort of area is always interesting to me because I think industry is just one of those parts of the city that, you know, kind of gets pushed to the side. When you notice little interesting parts of industry, it's hard not to just keep an eye out for it. And it's always the stuff that I kind of find the most fascinating when visiting cities is where industry sits and how it's working within the city and how the city has to kind of like navigate it all and kind of build around it too. Sometimes suburbs and houses are kind of close. Sometimes they're far away. In this instance, they're pretty close. This is a bit of an industrial side of the town, and I kind of like it. I like that we've got this park in the middle, and it truly divides what is a much nicer area. Again, we'll remove this guy. I promise, I'll remove him. Much nicer side of the town, and then over this side, I think it's like a little bit more industrial, a bit more smoky, but I still think it's kind of cool. There's some nice little spots down here that I think would be kind of fun to live in. Something that I'm excited to work on in the future is some more of the electricity side of things, because we actually have no power station. We are still relying on an outside connection, which is a little bit embarrassing at this stage. So we do have a transformer here, and I think it fits into a very nice little spot. You know, I think sometimes you overlook power lines. I feel like I'm a big power line enthusiast here, but I think they add a lot to the city. I always enjoy seeing aspects of the city that kind of, you know, different layers of it, and power lines are definitely a layer that I think add a lot of interest. And look at all down here. Isn't this lovely? This little pathway as it snakes around, because they do have these access points that people can get into and, I don't know, service or do some stuff, or maybe just like a little bit of fishing. I mean, I wouldn't want to fish in here, but I'm sure some people would. And I'm going to continue working on little areas like this. I feel like this is not complete. All of this still needs a bit of development because I do want to get into all of this area and detail it up. So this is kind of like just a bit of a placeholder as I think about what else we could do here. But I've also got a new tool that I'm going to play with in just a moment. We'll talk about that in a moment. This is a cargo harbor warehouse, and you're not usually allowed to place these down, but I'm using Find It here, and you can place down these buildings. If I type in warehouse, he should pop up. Yeah, there it is there. Now, this is an awesome looking building. Unfortunately, it does nothing. I'm sure it's creating a bit of pollution. Yeah, noise pollution is increased in this area, but it is unfortunately doing nothing except for costing us money. And then we've also got this big boy, the very first signature building of the industrial side. And yeah, I mean, this is great. I think this is a nice looking building, and to be honest, I think I might even extend out a bit of the land just to make all these little, you know, all this industry just a little bit more prominent, because I don't know, I feel like I could use a little bit more space for this. But I'm keen to get into more signature industrial buildings because they do add a lot to the city, not to mention a whole bunch of employment. So that is also good because we do need that as well. And it's actually in a pretty good spot because it is kind of buffered from this park. Now, something I want to just explore very quickly is I have subbed to a new asset. This is another surface, and it's just been added to Paradox Mods, and it is a pretty nice one. It's a surface water. Look at these. Now, this is something that we desperately need. And you just drag them out like that, and bam, you've got a bit of water. And this is honestly truly awesome. Like, this is going to add so much. Oh, what? Where did you go? Well, it's not a totally foolproof option. And we're getting there, aren't we? It's gonna be good. It really will. It's a shame we can't use this. And we can. I mean, can I use that? I just don't like it when we've got the lines, but that's not so bad. That's not so bad. It's just these little creases. Do you see that? Little gaps. I don't love it. But I can probably go through and fix them up. So I'll do that instead. I gotta remind myself that this is an area that I'm not gonna be spending like ages looking at close up. This is serving a purpose of being a green space and providing green space options for the city as well. And maybe we could use a path around it and just a little bit of extra detail, but I'm going to leave it at that because I think it adds enough for what I want to achieve in this area. What I want to do next time though, and maybe not in the next episode, but when we do work around it again, is add some sort of potential golf course that sits in here. Because we do also have another really nice area that we built in a live stream, and I think that we need to kind of like bridge that gap. Because it is a bit of an awkward spot that I feel like we need to really think about what could be in an area like this. We have a fairly significant road, so I almost want to be placing something that will attract a lot of people, maybe even like potentially a harbor. Like I am kind of heading in that direction, but then I already have a harbor, but it could be a good little ferry service. I don't know. What do you think? Please let me know. But I think that's going to be it for this episode. It's a nice little detailing one, once again, even though I said I wasn't going to do that, but here we are. These detailing options are just getting better and better, so I really just can't help myself. But that is it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I want to give a special shout out to some of the people over on Patreon supporting the channel and making videos like this possible. Samuel Stelzer, Antpez, Kenan Koenig, Riley Callahan, Ryan, Geordie, Thompson Applin, John Reed, Rixo12, Burns Vice Versa, Y100921, and Christopher Wren. Cheers guys, I'll see you all in the next one.